Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, October 30th, 2025 edition of Douglas Now Live. I'm Robert Preston Jr. here in our Douglas Now Live studios at the office of Coffee County Broadcasters on West Walker Street here in Douglas. Couple of stories I want to talk about real quickly. I want to hit, a story that is a national story, but also affects us here locally. And then I want to, of course, go over our sports roundup for the weekend. I'm going to hit that real quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. We've already talked about a lot of the things that we will discuss with that. It's just a review, but I do feel like we need to set that up here on this Thursday afternoon. So I have a picture here on our desk camera of the sign out in front of the Coffee County Food Bank. Now, what is the relevance of discussing the food bank here today? Well, if you have followed the national headlines, and a lot of people have, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as SNAP, it's also the food stamp program, will go away, or at least be suspended, not go away, but be suspended on November 1st, which is Saturday, if Congress does not act. Now, this is a part of the government shutdown, and we've talked a little bit about the shutdown and what it may or may not mean and how long it could potentially last and several different issues around that. Now, there are a couple things Congress could do between now and Saturday that would ensure that people receive their SNAP benefits. Now, what I'm not here to do today is to talk about the political issues and the political ramifications and theories and ideologies and what have you about what you think about SNAP, whether you think it's appropriate, inappropriate, fraught with government waste, fraud, or what have you. Not here to debate about that. What we're here to discuss is the fact that unless something happens between now and Saturday, SNAP benefits are going to go away. The 42 million Americans who depend on SNAP benefits in some shape, form, or fashion. So what's going to happen if those benefits go away? And of course, the way we're framing this today is that it's going to create a burden is not the right word, but increased traffic, increased demand for local services, which includes the local food banks, i.e. in Coffee County, our Coffee County Food Bank. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about the issue and then discuss a little bit about what the Coffee County Food Bank is expecting and then what we can do as a community to help the food bank. All right. Once again, not interested in debating how people feel about the SNAP program. What we need, and there is a work requirement to receive SNAP benefits. People got into that discussion on our Facebook page. I did publish a story about this. People got into that, and yes, there is a work requirement. But even if people are working, they're used to getting benefits, and we'll talk a little bit about how much those benefits are worth, if you will. If you take those benefits away, there's going to be a gap there. And we're going to have to fill that gap in some shape, form, or fashion. So, on average, about 100, this is nationwide, so this changes from community to community and from state to state or whatever. Just on average, families receive about $187 per month in SNAP benefits. Now, it's a federally administered program. The USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, administers the SNAP program, but or they fund it, but the states administer it, right? So states determine eligibility and the monthly allocations. They figure out the amount of money that people get. The states send that information to the folks who actually allocate the benefits. There's a third-party contractor that does that. And then they load the benefits onto a card that then people can use to buy eligible food items. Now, whenever there are delays for whatever reason, the funding gets doesn't get loaded onto the cards. It creates a disruption of service. And the government shutdown certainly is a disruption of service. So Congress gives money to the USDA each year, and some of that money has to go toward the SNAP program. Then the USDA gives the states their allocations for SNAP. So that's kind of how it works. Now, what's interesting, and you can't take this number and divide it among the 50 states to get a number, because it varies from state to state by how many people live in the state, how many people get SNAP benefits, and what have you. But on average nationwide, SNAP carries about an $8 billion per month price tag. $8 billion per month. Now, there is a contingency fund, and our Georgia delegation, our senators, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, have referenced this in press releases that they've sent out. There is a contingency fund, and that contingency fund for SNAP is to give support in the event of an emergency or a spike in SNAP enrollment. An example of an emergency would be a hurricane, right? Because people will need more benefits in the aftermath of a hurricane, such as what hit here a year ago. So the question is, this is the question that needs to be asked, is a government shutdown an emergency? It's certainly not a spike in SNAP enrollment, but is it an emergency? The other thing you have to look at is there's about $6 billion in that contingency fund right now. So there's not even enough money in the fund, the contingency fund, to fund a month at a full level of benefits. Now, Republicans say that the contingency fund cannot be used for SNAP, cannot be used in the event of a government shutdown. Democrats say it absolutely can. It is the very definition of an emergency, and if we are not going to use it as such, why do we have it? Got a press release. I'm actually on our senators' email list, and I got a joint press release earlier this week from Senators Warnock and Ossoff, and it was a statement outlining this issue, and in that statement, it said that Congress could use contingency funds to fund SNAP benefits. Now, it did not reference the fact that there's not enough money in the contingency fund to fully fund benefits nationwide. And it didn't get into the possible legal and political ramifications of using that contingency fund. All right. But I guess the take-home message regarding the fund is there's money available, and the law is not explicitly clear on whether or not the money can be used in the event of a government shutdown. There haven't been any court cases to test this, so there's no legal precedent describing what may or may not happen if, in fact, Congress did try to allocate these funds to pay for SNAP benefits in the event of a shutdown. So the law's a little bit ambiguous, but Republicans say it can't be used. Democrats say it can. And that's one of the areas that the fight is, one of the areas in which the fight is taking place. You've got another option. Now, of course, when we're talking about options of funding SNAP benefits, the ultimate option is to end the government shutdown. If you end the government shutdown, then all of this is moot, right? Because once the government shutdown ends, then services and funding and what have you return to normal. But the government does have the opportunity, or the option, if you will, to move money around. The Trump administration has used some leftover money in the Defense Department's budget to pay the salaries for troops. And they've also, this is kind of interesting because, you may ask yourself, and it's a question worth asking, what happens to the tariff money, right? Because we have tariffs in place. We spent a lot of time this year on our various platforms talking about the tariffs. There's a lot of tariff money that the United States has collected, right? Even with the shifting amounts of tariffs and the shifting rates and percentages, countries are still paying tariffs. There's a lot of money out there in tariff funds. So what to do with that? The Trump administration did use some unspent tariff money to fund the WIC program. So if you're thinking, well, we could use money from another budget or another department or another fund to pay for WIC, we should be able to do so with SNAP. But that's not necessarily the case. And you have to look at how WIC and SNAP are designated. And SNAP is a mandatory program. It has to be funded each year. Now, WIC gets funded each year, but it's not mandatory. It's discretionary. So what those who oppose moving money around to pay for SNAP say is it's easier to use discretionary funds like or to use funds for discretionary spending, such as WIC programs, than it is for mandatory programs such as SNAP. It seems to be you're splitting a hair there and you're getting into some semantics, but such is the way government works, such is the way funding works. And again, there's not legal precedent to challenge this. So that's where that stalemate is. But the government has shown, the administration has shown no inclination to move money from any other fund to pay for SNAP benefits. Another option on the table, and I'm guessing there are a couple of states that may do this. Another option is for states to pay for the benefits and then get reimbursed by the federal government. However, the federal government has said it's not going to do that. They said, look, you can cover the cost of funding these benefits. That's fine if you want to dip into your funds, but we're not going to pay you back. So the Trump administration is digging its heels in with regard to these other possibilities for funding SNAP benefits. So there's several things that could happen. And you got, a couple days for those things to happen. The simplest thing is to just end the government shutdown. But again, both Republicans and Democrats have dug their heels in. They've drawn a line in the sand. Neither one of them are willing to cross. And so we're looking at these other options, and none of them look really good. There may be a few states that want to pay out of their budgets or out of their various funds to pay for the SNAP benefits for November, all right? But they're probably not going to get paid back for that. So I would imagine there are a couple of places that might do it, but for the most part, that's not going to happen. I do not think Georgia would do that. I do not look for Georgia to do that at all. So unless something changes, and we've got less than 36 hours for that to change, unless something changes, a lot of people, tens of millions of people around the country are going to lose their benefits as of Saturday. So what does that have to do with the food bank? Well, if people are losing their benefits, their grocery buying power, if they're losing funds that they use to buy groceries for their families, then the burden is going to meet those needs is going to fall on local institutions, local agencies, and local groups. And churches will be on the front lines, so will the food bank. And the food bank is expecting that. They are expecting an increased demand over the next couple of weeks, next month or so. The food bank actually released a statement yesterday on its Facebook page that reads, "We are committed to helping those in need at Coffee County Food Bank. Our mission remains unchanged, dedicated to assisting those in need while sharing the hope we find in Christ." Right below that, the food bank asked for donations. Now, there's two types of donations you can give. One are non-perishable food items. But one thing that the food bank does and is really good at, and this is a testament and a testimony for the local agencies and local businesses and what have you, and the vendors who supply food to the food bank, is that they get a really good rate on the food that they buy. they buy good stuff at a high volume for pennies on the dollar. So one of the best ways to help out is to simply make a financial donation. And they can get a lot more out of your donation of money a lot of times than they can out of your donation of food. Now, they'll take anything because they're going to use it all. But we put a QR code on our Facebook page in the comments of the story. You can scan that QR code and you can make a donation to the food bank via PayPal with that. Certainly, they will also take other donations in person. You can go down to the food bank and speak with the folks down there and do and give them whatever you would like to, whatever is laid upon your heart to do so. So yeah, there's going to be a need at the food bank, and I can't tell you what a tremendous work the food bank does in our community. They really do. All right. We have some fantastic organizations. We have a lot of really good groups that give back to our community in a lot of different ways. The food bank is at the top of the list. They're not the only ones. The top of that list is kind of, it's not like a pyramid where you have one up here. You've got, a large area at the top of that list where there are several organizations that occupy that highest level with what they give back to our community and the work that they do, and the food bank is one of them. All right. So regardless of whether you agree with the shutdown or not, regardless of whether you agree with the SNAP program, regardless of whether you think it's right or wrong that benefits have been suspended or will likely be suspended, people are going to be in need. All right. And the food bank mentioned a spiritual angle here. So let's take a look at that. All right. One of the things that people of faith are commanded to do in the Bible is to help the poor, to help those who cannot help themselves. And that runs from the Old Testament through the New Testament, from Genesis to Revelation. That's one of the consistent commands throughout the Bible, that people of faith should take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. I don't see a lot of qualifiers on that. I don't see a lot of conditions placed on that. If someone is in need, regardless of why they're in need, and we have the ability and the means to help them, then we should. And if benefits are suspended on Saturday, there are going to be tremendous needs in our community. And we as a community need to step up. The food bank could possibly be overwhelmed with requests for food. And they're going to need our help. So let's help if we can, and we all can. We really can. So once again, maybe something happens. Maybe there could be a SNAP-specific bill brought before Congress. There could be some different types of spending legislation that gets passed. There are a couple of different things that could do. That could be done. And Democrats have done a little bit, and Republicans have done a little bit, but they can't seem to get together. We've talked a little bit about why that is. If benefits are suspended, the food bank's going to need some help, and we can help them. Sports. Several different sports stories. Basketball is beginning, but we're not quite there yet. So right now what we've got is pretty much football. And if you didn't get enough of tackle football, we now have flag football that we can talk about. CCA made football history this week in Coffee County when the first girls flag football team that we've ever had at any school played interscholastic games as an official sanctioned sport. CCA won 2 games. A couple days ago, won 40. You see the score here, 40-8 in one game, and then won 50-0 in the second game. So since about 2020, 2021, the GHSA has had flag football as a sanctioned sport. It has spread to other organizations. And, of course, CCA plays in the GIAA because they're a private school, the Georgia Independent Athletic Association. But, yeah, they've got games next week, and then I believe games the week after. It's a very short season. They play 2 games a day, so they only play about 6 games before they'll get into the postseason. And I don't know what these other teams look like, but go read the story that we posted on Douglas Now that gives you the statistics that these girls had. It's pretty phenomenal. When you score 90 points in 2 games, you're going to have some big numbers anyway. Rushing, passing, pick sixes, the whole bit. And it's a lot of fun. You know, one thing that girls do when they play, this is one of the things I enjoy about softball, you know, they don't have all the traditions and the unwritten rules, if you will, that men's sports have, such as baseball. When the better you play in baseball, the least amount of fun you're supposed to have or the least amount of emotion you're supposed to show. But girls don't do that. You go watch a girls' softball game, and they have a lot of fun. You see things there that you don't see in the men's game. From the chatter that they do, from the way they celebrate, they're able to show emotions in such a way that men cannot when they play baseball. And the same thing happens with football. You get to see some pretty neat celebrations and some pretty neat emotions out on the field. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But CCA Lady Patriots, congratulations, and a bit of football history here in Douglas and Coffee County. A little more history that CCA has made. We're not going to get into the weeds with this. We've talked about it. But tomorrow, CCA Patriots will host their first home playoff game, and it's the first playoff game in program history. They're playing Fullerton Academy again here in Douglas at 7:30. This is the first round of the state playoffs for CCA. If they're able to win this game, and they played Fullerton a few weeks ago up there at their place and won. And so, you know, again, we'll see if we can continue, a winning streak against Fullerton. But if we win, we're probably going to end up playing Vidalia Heritage Academy up there the following week, and that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be a very, very tough game. But let's get past Fullerton first. The Patriots are going to have a winning record this year, no matter what. They have made the playoffs, so you're playing. I wanted to say playing football in November. That's not exactly where we are, but we're playing extra games. We're playing games that were not scheduled before the season began. And this is the first year of a region schedule for the Patriots, so it's worked out real well for them. Coffee has made the playoffs. They've got the final regular season game tomorrow, last game of the year at Jardine Stadium. They will be playing the Thomas County Central Yellow Jackets. TCC is the they've won the region, number 1 team in our region, number 2 team in the state. They're one of the 2 teams expected to play for a state championship this year. So they have been one of the favorites to win a state title all year long, and the Trojans have their work cut out for them. They are coming in as 40-point favorites. So, the Thomas County Central is really good. They were good last year, but they're even better this year, and they've been one of the teams to beat all year long. So the Coffee Trojans have their work cut out for them. Tomorrow, the good news is that we've made the playoffs. We're going to be on the road. If things go according to plan, our first round opponent will probably be Sequoia back up there again. We played them in the quarterfinals last year. That was a game we scored 70 points. I think we beat them 70-48. And that was where Tyrese Woogett set the state single game rushing record, 605 yards. Also scored 8 touchdowns in that game. Now, that record has since been broken. Ty Cummings of West Lawrence rushed for 615 yards and 8 touchdowns of his own earlier this year. To set that record during the postseason is something else, because again, you're playing the best teams in the state in the playoffs, and that's where Woogett set his record. So I would imagine Sequoia would like a rematch, and it looks like they're probably going to get it. One more thing. Of course, this weekend, if you're looking for something to do, Broxton Chicken Liver, is it Chicken Liver and Gizzards or Chicken Gizzards and Liver Fest? Anyway, the Broxton Chicken Liver Festival going on this weekend up in Broxton, Georgia. If you don't have anything to do, go up there and check that out. They would very much appreciate your attendance and your patronage. As we break off here, let's take a look at our tower cam. We're going to do this every show just because the tower cam's there. But look at those clouds. It looks a little different than it has. We've had some ugly weather. You know, it went from really pretty weather and warm. We had a few cool mornings, but it went from pretty warm in the afternoons. The last couple of days has been really cold, almost uncomfortably cold. And so you can see what it looks like, again, looking back east toward Douglas, even though the sun is not out. I mean, those clouds are beautiful. It's a pretty, it's a pretty cloud formation today, if not a little bit ominous. I don't think we're going to get a lot of bad weather from it, but again, there's a little bit of an ominous look to that. But that's our tower cam for today. I want to thank everyone for streaming with us today. We appreciate it. Again, we'll see what happens with SNAP benefits, but if they go away, keep the food bank in mind. Should you feel led to make a donation either of a non-perishable food item or items or some type of financial donation, keep them in mind. And we don't do that a lot. We don't solicit donations. We don't advertise for things like this. No one called and asked me to do this. I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what? Food banks around the country are bracing themselves for increased traffic and increased demand if, in fact, these benefits do go away on Saturday. And the food bank is a worthy charity, and there will be a great need, and that will be an opportunity to help fill the need and make an immediate impact and an immediate difference on people in Coffee County. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday. If nothing breaks big between now and Tuesday, we will see you back Tuesday morning. If something happens, we will be here. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll see you next time.